quick background on me. I have a master's in exercise physiology. I've been doing this since 2001. I've worn a lot of different hats. I've been a health and physical education teacher. I worked at Duke Diet and Fitness Center at their obesity clinic for a while. Now I do my own thing, and I'm out and about. And my certification in nutrition is more of a holistic American Academy of Sports Dietitians and Nutritionists. So I kind of take more of a holistic approach to things. I almost wanted to be a registered dietitian, then I changed my mind after I looked at what I had to do. So I was like, this way is more the way I want to go. So I'm going to sit on the wall too. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Perfect.
I'm not much taller when I stand up, so but I don't like standing, and so I've had the pleasure to look over your food logs. If you guys were at my last talk, I gave you 15 tips of like good general things to kind of like look after and everything. Well, I've looked over food logs. Y'all turn in your food logs, right? Maybe.
Yes.
And I pulled off some things that I thought would be good to kind of go over, to reevaluate, to bring back into the picture, to help you along your way. So, to continue on this fabulous journey that we're all on, the mystery of trying to figure out our bodies. I mean, it's pretty wild and crazy. So, one good thing looking over your food logs that I liked a lot was I didn't see a ton of sodas, which was awesome. Hands up, high fives. I did see some sweet teas, obviously some alcohol once in a while, which is okay, and some fruit juices. So just be aware of some of those things. But my big thing is don't drink your calories. I didn't even see a lot of Starbucks drinks, which I was really proud to see, or not see actually, because sometimes those guys can sneak in. And Emily, we're gonna need one more.
Okay.
I'm short.
Take a ball, Nicole.
Oh
my God, this one is soft.
Get
Real
this
soft.
Maybe that would be away. Here, this is.
There you go.
So kudos on that, the not drinking your calories portion. What I do want to go over a little bit today is we all know, and I know you guys have done the BMR and all that, you've looked at like, okay, this is the amount of calories I should have for the day, blah, blah, I do this amount of exercise, I do the math, this is what I should be losing 1 to 2 pounds a week, blah, blah, blah. Why isn't this happening? You know, so, you know, I like to go beyond the calories, so calories are not created people. And so we're going to look past the calories a little bit today, and it's not just about calories in and calories out. There's a lot of things that go on in your body, a lot of things that we take in on a daily basis that can disrupt that balance. So does anybody know how many calories equal a pound?
3,500.
3,500. So if you do your math and you figure it out and you're like, I need this many calories to say, because you guys all had your basic set, right? You know, and it might be somewhere between whatever. You should never drop below 1,200 calories a day anyway, because then that slows things down and it's not good for the system. But depending on your body size, what you want to do and all that kind of stuff, your muscle mass and all that, you have your set amount of calories. And then if you want to lose weight, you adjust them this way. And then you account for all the exercise that you do and all this. Well, sometimes it doesn't always work out. So we're going to talk about why a little bit. And all of our bodies process things differently. That's why not one size fits all. That's why I'm not like to say, you need to be on a 1,500 calorie diet with this amount of protein, this amount of fats, this amount of carbs. You need to find out what works for you, and that's why food logging and food journaling is so important. So we'll talk about that quickly. We all have a different bacteria in our gut. Which along with our genetic makeup and the way our hormones work, everybody has different hormones, the way our brain center works, all of that can be very different from one another in how we digest, break down, and utilize our energy and food. So knowing that, like I said, just following on that one size fits all approach is not really what we're looking to do. So the one big rule though that does go for everybody, the less processed food, the less packaged food, the less pre-made food choices you take in, the better overall you're going to be. Okay, let's face it. What I have seen a lot on food logs have been a lot of restaurant food, a lot of takeout food and a lot of food that has come from packages. So those are some things that I really like to, you know, a lean cuisine with chicken breast and vegetables is not the same as what you make at home, a chicken breast with vegetables. Make yourself your own lean cuisines, you know, things like that. Going out to eat, even if you think you're making healthy choices at Panera and some other places, there's a lot of additives, there's a lot of preservatives, there's a lot of other things, even though they say it's natural, there's a lot of other things that they put on that food and how they prepare that food that you probably wouldn't do at home. So just being aware of that, and whenever you're eating out at least once a day, you're getting and taking in a lot of extra things that your body doesn't need. And I see a lot of people opening up, whoops, throwing a pen, opening up packages and things like that and eating out of those because it's convenience. So that takes me on to why do you guys feel, and this is what I want to know, some feedback too, why do you feel that we're doing that? Or why is that in a lot of your food journals? Maybe it's not your food journal. Because it's quick and convenient, okay?
It's ways to get out of the office.
A way to get away? Is that why? Okay. Because everybody has different reasons, you know, and a lot of times, like our society, it's social. You know, let's go out to eat, let's go. With the clients I've worked with before is, you know, I talk about planning, fail to plan, plan to fail, the big thing. Taking the time. So some of us are on big time constraints as well at home. We don't have time to prepare all this food. We don't have time to do certain things. I understand. I'm a very busy person too. I don't have kids, but I feel like I do. I'm running all over. I leave at 5:45 in the morning and I don't get home until 6:37 at night. And I don't eat out at restaurants for the most part. Once in a while I'll meet somebody for a lunch, but very, very seldom do I. Well, what happens is I have a cooler in my car that I take everything with me. So if you want to get out of the office, you want to do that, pack the cooler. I asked Debbie what I just did. I'm like, I'm going to go sit in my car and eat my lunch, and that's what I did. I got out, or I will go out and walk around. We live in Florida. It's pretty much beautiful most of the year, so get out and do that. You can also find different parks, places, and things like that to take a lunch to. So, you know, and if you are meeting people, you can even take some of your own stuff. I've been known to pull stuff out. I'll get a salad or lettuce from somewhere, and I'll pull out my own protein and slide it on my salad out of my purse or out of my bag. So don't be afraid to do those things because, you know, own what's going into your body. The one thing with spending time to prep and taking time. So how many of us are doing like 5 workouts a week?
A week.
A week. 5 hours a week at the gym. How many of us don't have time to prep food at home?
I did, but I'm starting.
Okay. So, I would rather see, and when I look at the food logs, this is kind of what comes back to me. Take 1 hour out of your 5 days that you're working out at the gym. Only go to the gym 4 days. Take that 1 hour, prep for 3 to 4 days of home food, or food that you can take with you, and do a 4-minute metabolic workout at home. If you need one of those, let any of us know. We can give you one. It will kick your booty. You will be done. You'll feel like you did something, and then you had that time to prep. Because if you're continuing, you know, we talk about you can't out-train a bad diet. So if you come and you're busting your butt 5-6 days a week and putting in all the time in these classes and not taking the time to prep on the front side of things, and then you're grabbing those quick, convenient foods to replenish and recover, all that hard work you're doing in the gym is not helping. Okay, so there's been times where I've gone to people's homes to do a training session with them, and we spent the morning talking about their food prep list or cooking something. And I'm like, you know, we're here to work out. Well, yeah, you need to work out, but it's most important to fuel yourself first, and then talk about that workout secondary. Now, don't get me wrong, working out is very important, and we need to, you know, stay in balance with everything. However, if you're finding yourself, I don't have time to prep, and I don't have time to do those things, make time. And if you really want, you can make time. Okay, so take that extra hour, prep big. I prep, you know, for 3-4 days at a time. I'll cook a breakfast that will last 3 days. I just pull it out of the fridge, warm it up, take it, grab it, go. I'll prep, you know, like 5 chicken breasts and 10 pieces of salmon. Just bake it all off in the oven together, put it in the fridge, and then I pull it out and just throw it with different things for different meals. And there's my good base of protein and things. So you can do it, and because of the fabulous internet and everything out there, there's some amazing sites to go to. So it's all right there at our fingertips now. That's one thing that's great, is you just have to do it, right? And make the time to do it. All that is out there for you. Some great sites I like, just for nutrition information and things, is NutriData, nutritiondata.com. Mind Body Green has some great things. I log every day on MyFitnessPal, so I know what nutrients I'm getting in. Not just my percentages, but yesterday I looked at it and I'm like, wow, I ate way too many carbohydrates and not enough protein, and I felt it. I was just like, oh, my body, no wonder I'm tired today and feeling it this way. So I know whenever I hit my protein marks, my fat marks, my carbohydrate marks, my fiber marks, and I don't eat a lot of sugars, my body definitely responds to that. So that's a good thing to track on that. Make sure you're tracking on that, not just writing down your food log and it looks good on paper and I'm like, okay, I had a quarter cup of this, I had this and this and this, but really look at the nutrients that are going into that quarter cup of stuff. And it's very easy on that NutriData. It will tell you exactly what's in what. Or if you plug stuff into MyFitnessPal, it's automatic. It just shoots it right out there for you and it tallies it up and makes it all perfect. It's so nice. 20 years ago we didn't have this, so here am I, looking, writing everything down, getting out my book, looking at my calorie counter, so it's come a long way and it's made things super easy for us, so we should have no excuses now, right? I love Pinterest. Plug in search words such as like meal prep for the week, and then it will teach you how to prep for like 5 to 7 days. Paleo work lunch ideas, I like that because it's usually low on sugar and carbs, because we tend to eat a lot of that on our own anyway. Clean eating and real food. And if you put some of those keywords in, random amazing things will pop up and there'll be tons of sites and you go to. There's so much out there people are blogging. Just, be smart and pick the ones that look like it's gonna work well for you. So, the next topic, the first meal of the day. This is what I noticed. I'm glad that people are putting things down for breakfast because I see a lot of food blogs that doesn't happen. So that's awesome. But B, I'm seeing a lot of sugars and empty carbs in the morning. And just our society's kind of led us that way. Oatmeal, pancakes, cereals, fruits, things like that are easy go-to and we think of those as breakfast items. Well, we sometimes have breakfast for dinner, have dinner for breakfast. Trying to get healthy fats and proteins in the morning. Smoothies are a great way to do it. Just make sure that when you do that, your balance of healthy fats and proteins are higher than your fruit and your sugars that you're putting in there. So, just a half a frozen banana if you're adding in more fruits, or know that your serving sizes of fruits that are going there, because you can really ramp up the sugar content of a smoothie before you know it. Once you blend everything in there, you're like, oh my goodness, that's 800 calories and most of it's carbs. So just be wary of that whenever you're making your smoothies and things like that. But the big thing is on the food logs I'm seeing a lot of oranges for breakfast with coffee, which isn't bad, but let's try to set the base. I recommend at least a 400 calorie breakfast if you can, mostly coming from fats and proteins. Your carbs will filter in the rest of the day and they'll catch up to you really fast, believe me, it happens. So trying to do that. When I talk about fats, proteins, and carbs, y'all know macronutrients, we're talking about those, right? So we'd all be there by now, so we're there. Don't forget about those micronutrients. I talked about the macros being your cinder blocks, and those micronutrients being like the mortar that keeps all the blocks stacked in together nice and neat. The micronutrients, your vitamins and minerals. And so the more real foods you eat, the more of those you get too. So if we're eating things out of packages and processed things and things that are made in labs, we tend to miss some of those fabulous things that help our systems run. So, does anyone have any questions on any of that so far that I was going
Well, meal prepping and stuff I do I'm not sure how to do that. I do my breakfast, that's easy. But for dinners and lunches and stuff, I have no idea.
You have to take a day, really.
What
I had to learn that.
I have nothing but time.
No.
You need
So
to.
it's not about time.
Yeah, and that's where I love, like I said, go on Pinterest.
I did.
That's great. Meal prep for a week, whatever. Well, for example, and every week for me is different. But so Sunday, okay, for 2 hours is what I did. Like I said, I baked off 5 chicken breasts. I made salmon, about 8 pieces of salmon between my husband and I. And I did grass-fed lean burger and made some little burger meatballs. Okay, so that's all in the fridge ready to go. Well, yesterday we had a spinach salad with some salmon on it, sliced up some strawberries, some red onion, and balsamic dressing. Boom, that was lunch. Then dinner, I pulled a chicken breast out, sliced it down, made some zucchini noodles with some tomato sauce. That was dinner. Then the next day, and my breakfast was already pre-made ahead of time too. And so the next day, we had chicken fajitas for lunch, which I did in lettuce wraps because I don't eat, tortillas, but my husband does, so he ate the tortilla. So I took some of that chicken. I had grilled up some onions and peppers at the beginning of the week. Slid some of them in there, sliced that down. Then the other night for dinner, we had salmon and asparagus. I just steamed up asparagus, already had my salmon already made, boom, done. It's very quick to just add a vegetable or add something to it once you get your protein. And if you do quinoa, if you're not doing meats and things like that, some weeks I'll cook up 2 cups, 3 cups of quinoa at the beginning of the week and let it sit in the fridge, and then I'll pull it out and I'll turn it into a soup, a stir fry. I'll use it as a side, and then I'll make a power bowl out of it. So it's gone for 4 meals, but they've all been different meals. And I've changed flavor profiles. One night's Mexican seasoning I throw in there. One night is Italian seasoning I throw in there. One night it's, Thai. So, just take some coconut milk and some Thai stuff and make it into a Thai dish, So it really is dependent on you, but once you kind of get your little system going and what you like to do, and now next week, I might do different kind of fish. I may not do salmon as my big base, and I might do steak one night or, shrimp or something like that. So, you really have to find out what works for you, and like you said, take a day, kind of play around. It might take, a couple hours, but once you zone it in, I can meal prep for pretty much 5 days now in about an hour or 2. Like sometimes I'll just chop up a bunch of veggies and roast them in the oven. I roasted off sweet potatoes, beets, Brussels sprouts, and cauliflower. I put them all in the oven at one time, roasted them all up, but it lasted me 6 different meals in the fridge for that week. And I didn't use them all at the same thing. Like, okay, this night was just sweet potatoes. Well, then the next night was this and this and this. And then the last night I put it all together and made a soup out of it. So you just got to figure it out.
And that's the process.
It's a process, but once you get it down, and that's the next thing too, is about weighing out things. Everybody's talking about serving sizes and things like that. Get yourself a scale. Start to weigh some things out so you can see this is an ounce of this, this is an ounce of this, this is a serving of this. So once you eyeball it, once you do it like 5 or 6 times, you'll be at a restaurant and you'll be like, that's 6.5 ounces. You'll be like right on, you'll know, So it just takes a little bit of time, but it's a realization sometimes. Like for me, myself, when I first started using a scale, I was not eating enough of certain things, like fish especially and things like that. I'm like, oh, I should have 5 to 6 ounces of fish. I was only eating 3 to 4 ounces because I'm like, well, that's a serving, that should be it. And I should have been having twice as much. Now, sometimes we go on the other end of things and we overeat certain ounces of the bad things, and I'll talk about that really briefly here coming up. So
that's where I'm at, Nicole. Exactly what you said. That's where I'm at. I'm in a starvation mode. My body, I'm not eating enough.
Right. And when you eat real food, you don't realize how much you
eat. Well, I'm eating the real food, but I wasn't eating enough because I was feeling full. But I was in an assessment, I lost muscle and gained the fat because I'm in a starvation mode. So now I'm having, like you just said,
probably need to up your protein.
Yes, I had to up my protein, but I'm being conscientious of having bigger servings. And even though I'm not hungry the last couple of days, I forced myself to eat snacks, and I'm having to do that.
Yeah.
And see, and I won't do that.
And you just need to log it and listen to your body, because then if you start to gain back, okay, that's not where my caloric balance needs to be right now. And it goes from day to day as well. So
what do you usually eat for breakfast?
It depends. Today I had chia pudding. Sometimes I have smoothies. I mean, depending on, I'm a big, if I have time in the morning, which I usually don't have time in the morning, but I've made, like Lisa posted a thing on the Weight Warriors with the egg cups. Did you see those?
I've seen them before.
You make them in muffin tins?
Oh, that's what I did.
That's a
I put those up there.
That's a free thing. That's my go-to. I grab that.
It's on the Warrior page. Mine was so good. I had it all last week. That was the only prep I could do. Yeah. That was so easy, but I used mainly egg whites, like you told me.
Yeah.
And I just put a couple eggs in with the egg whites. But I made a whole bunch. I mean, I ended up making probably 25 or 30 of them. And I brought them and shared them with the girls. Maria tried one. They're really, really good.
They're all zipped up in the, and I usually do like a 1-to-3 ratio. I usually do 1 egg and 3 egg whites.
Yep.
I get the Organic Valley egg whites
Yep.
and use a quarter cup, third cup of those, and 1 egg for 1
That's what I
serving
did.
for me. So I get the amount of protein in there that I need, and then I just zip all that. Like I put 12 eggs in the thing, and then equal out the 1-to-3 ratio in my Vitamix. Zip it all up, and then I stir in or chop in onions, peppers. I do spinach. I don't do meat in those. Some people do put some meats in those, but I don't. And then I bake them off in the oven in the muffin tins, and then they're in the freezer. I pull them out of the freezer and let them in the fridge, and then I grab and go and I eat those. I ate a steak the other morning for breakfast, leftover. It was leftover steak from the night. You know, so
I
I
got
mean,
that, yeah.
it's
Was
just
this morning? Was this you?
what.
Somebody posted a breakfast?
That's Lisa. Yeah, that's
Lisa?
that's the egg recipe.
That's
So I mean, there's a lot of different, you know, and in the mornings it's like a timing thing for a lot of people. You don't have time to do all that kind of stuff, and it's grab and go. And so the easy convenience food. I don't like to rely too much on bars, just because there's a lot of processed junk in those bars. So that's like an emergency. But if you're eating a bar every morning for breakfast, it's probably not like the best thing. So I would rather say eating something real and whole food. I eat a tablespoon of coconut butter every morning to get some healthy fats and some fiber in there, along with like some protein. And like my chia pudding this morning was 10 grams of protein, and I put a half a cup of blueberries in it. And so I had like 6 grams of fiber and 10 grams of protein for my breakfast, and it's like 100, almost 200 calories. So when you make that up, if you look on, you know, and it really depends what you like, you know, and that's just me. Like it may work for you, it may not work for you. You know, you need to find out what works, but think outside the box for breakfast. One of my favorites when I'm eating oatmeal, is an oatmeal bake that I make, and it's just oatmeal and some almond milk and a little vanilla and cinnamon, and sometimes I'll chop up some nuts in there. Some chia seeds, and bake it off in the oven. And I'll actually sometimes blend in some eggs for more protein in there. And I'll bake it. I'll dump a cup or 2 of blueberries on top, and then I'll just section it off in squares, and then I'll just kind of heat it up and take it with me. Overnight oats in a jar, if you've ever tried those, they're not too bad.
What do you put in your breakfast smoothies?
Breakfast smoothies? I tend to like a good protein. I usually put like 2 cups of spinach. It depends what profile I'm going for. One of my favorites is 2 cups of spinach, a hunk of ginger, a little slice of pineapple, some cilantro, and some collagen protein. And that's one of my go-tos. Collagen protein. I use collagen protein. You can't even taste it in the smoothie. Some people like whey. My stomach doesn't like whey. You know, some people do okay with whey. You know, so that's the thing, is you got to find out, as long as it doesn't have a lot of chemicals and it's a good lean source and what it's coming from, and there's not a lot of additives in it. Sometimes I like a half of banana, some raw cacao nibs, or some, you know, little cocoa powder, and then some almonds and some protein, and then I throw some spinach in there just to, you know, some spinach. So it really, it's dependent upon what you really like. Just the biggest thing for the smoothies in the morning is proteins, healthy fats, something green, or something that's going to give you that benefit, and then add in your fruits secondary. A lot of people start with the fruit. I always leave the fruit. Like most fruit I'm putting in it is like a half an apple, like a 1/4 of a piece of pineapple, or like a half a cup of berries. Frozen works really well, or a half a banana, that kind of stuff, and then build your base from there.
Can you put that recipe that you just said for that smoothie, the first one, can you put that on a Warriors page
Yeah,
for us? Okay.
yeah. I like that one. It's a good anti-inflammatory
Yeah,
one.
it sounds like it. That's why I want that one.
I call it my Thai greenie.
So as far as getting the
Thai
protein
greenie.
into the smoothie, it's protein powder.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
really, you know, and you can put, if you like, you know, just put a handful of almonds in there and chia seeds. Almonds and chia seeds will also give you a high protein. If you do hemp seeds, I love hemp seeds. They cream up a smoothie pretty good. Some people don't like hemp seeds, they're afraid of them. You know, that's a great source of protein in your healthy omegas and some good fiber in there. I try to go for the real protein and fiber source before I do a powder or something, but realistically, it's hard to get if you're not a huge meat eater and stuff, it's hard to get protein in for your day, and protein is really what's going to help with what you need to do as far as that goes. Does that help? Just make sure when you're doing powders and things like that, that it is coming from, obviously I go for organic, non-GMO. Try to get one that's not processed with any heat. Really, you get what you pay for. So Walmart brands and drugstore, you know, those kinds of brands versus a real food source protein powder from like, there's a big difference between a $20 protein powder and like a $40 protein powder. So just be careful, and they like to sneak a lot of added things into them too, so just be careful. There's some good out there, there's some bad, so you just kind of got to outweigh that. I'm not going to endorse any certain brands, but just be smart and read your whole label, not just the nutrition panel, but what all is in there. Like my hemp protein is hemp, that's it, it's like what it is, you know. My collagen is grass-fed, you know, grass-fed beef collagen, that's, you know, so as far as like I'm not getting protein powders and things like that that have a bunch of added things. So moving quickly along, we don't have much time here. Ways calories and foods are not created equal. We talked about that. We're getting into the sugars. Number one, fructose, glucose, and I left sucrose off because y'all know sucrose, right? Table sugar. Okay, so we're gonna stay away from that. When you look at the makeup, you look at the calories, you look at everything, they're equal. You look at them on a piece of paper, they're equal, okay? They're not equal though when your body processes them. So your body processes them totally different. When you have glucose, glucose is what your body typically wants. It's your preferred source of energy coming from a sugar, and it's metabolized by all your body tissue, okay? So it's easily metabolized and utilized. When you take fructose, it's only metabolized by the liver. So that liver has to work extra super hard to take in that fructose. Well, fructose is coming from a lot of our added sugars. If you look in bars, you'll see sweetened with fructose, all those things. Fructose is also in fruit. Now, that doesn't mean fruit is terrible, because fruit has fiber and some other things, and when you eat fruit, you have to chew it down and that. But be careful, fruit juices that don't have the fiber in, or smoothies that you're making that you don't have to bring that down. That's why I say be careful that you're not getting too many sugars from that fruit sugar, okay? So obviously, high fructose corn syrup, fructose syrup, you know, all those things. So just be careful with that. Whenever your liver has to work hard to break down that sugar, your hunger hormone goes up, okay? So you become more hungry. That's why we talk about sugar being a drug and you have that addiction. It causes insulin resistance. So those people that have some diabetic issues, some blood sugar issues, probably not the best thing to be taking in a lot of fructose and things, which leads to weight gain. It also can increase your LDLs and your triglycerides, and it brings up those levels compared to glucose. So sugar is sugar, right? But sugar isn't sugar. Sugar is different. So making sure that when you're looking at things, it's not just where that's coming from. And that's where I'd say 1 calorie glucose, 1 calorie fructose, 1 calorie sucrose isn't 1 calorie. They're not equal. I mean, as it goes across, every one is slightly different. Your body's breaking things down. And that goes for pretty much everything that we ingest and take in. So does anybody have any questions on that? I just started with a basic carb sugar there. When we talk about the thermic effect of food, our food's broken down by different pathways, metabolic pathways in our body. And some are more efficient than others. So when we break down a food, we lose some energy to heat, you know, and some different processes. We need that energy to break it down. When you break down a fat, it takes about 2 to 3% energy to break down a fat. It takes about 6 to 8% of your energy to break down a carbohydrate. Anybody have any idea how much it takes to break down a protein? Any clue? 25 to 30% energy to break down a protein. So talk to me about which is your most metabolic bang for your buck.
Protein.
Protein, right?
Yeah, protein.
Okay, so don't take this out of, but just saying in your body, this is what happens. If I eat 100 calories of protein and I eat 100 calories of carbs, how many calories am I really getting out of that protein? Do the math. No, I'm just kidding. If I eat 100 calories of protein and I eat 100 calories of carbs, they're not created equal, right?
No.
Our body's going to process them differently
Right.
just because of what I said, how much energy it takes to break that down. So I'm technically really getting about 75 calories from that protein, and I'm getting about 98 calories from that carb. So that's where these numbers don't always match up, and where I say, look at the nutrients versus the calories, as far as that's going. And that's just one process. Your body may process it a little differently. You may have more muscle mass, you may process it differently. You may have a different endocrine system. I know you all do. You have different hormones. We're at different stages of our lives. We process all nutrients differently, so you need to find out what's going to work for you and don't get wrapped up so much on numbers as far as that goes. So what is happening there? So if I have two sandwiches, if I have a sandwich made with whole wheat bread and real cheddar cheese on this hand, that is equal calories and equal fats, carbs, and proteins, exactly equal to a sandwich that I made, and it might look different in size and stuff because of what it's made of white bread and a processed cheese. Which one's better?
We.
Right. Do we know why?
Because
It's going to take your body, and this has been studied, twice as much energy to break down that whole food, whole grain, real cheese product or that you ate versus a processed food. Same thing's going to happen when you go out to eat at a restaurant or eat something from a package, a lunch meat, things like that. Real turkey or chicken breast that you make versus something that has been processed and made for you, okay? Your body knows that. It knows that those things aren't real, okay? So just be aware of those things. That's the big thing. That's the big thing that's scary that we don't think about. We're like, oh, it's a ham and cheese sandwich or it's whatever. But it really does. It makes a big difference as to what's coming down. We're going to digest that whole food and protein and take a lot more energy to process it and utilize the nutrients in that a lot better and more efficient than the chemicals and other things that are in the processed and packaged
I have
foods.
a question. Like yesterday, for example, we went to do some groceries, and we are in front of the bread aisle. Like I'm not lying. Like for 45 minutes, trying. It never happened before my husband. We so long in the aisle to get bread, but we don't even can figure it out because I don't. My husband is diabetic, so we have stayed away from bread for the longest time. But we were like, let's make some sandwiches. I said, okay, let's see what bread we're going to buy. So we have whole wheat bread, which you can see the weight on the bread. And then we have like whole grain, and with all these nuts and seeds and stuff like that. So we are like, which one? And then we started trying to read calories and sugars and carbohydrates. So
You want to look for highest protein, highest fiber, lowest sugar, for sure. And then look at your ingredients and where it's coming from. I'm a fan, if I eat bread, I eat a sprouted bread.
because I do the
Ezekiel.
but then they don't want it to try to eat that one.
And
I tricked them. I tricked my.
And that's one, too, as far as everybody, I honestly have had a loaf of Ezekiel bread in my fridge probably for 6 or 7 months. That's how much bread I eat. It's just not in my personal diet. But if it's somebody that's your go-to and you eat a sandwich, and some people like Ezekiel bread and their body's okay with it, or bread. But if you're getting any other bread, I gotta say, organic, don't get processed GMO stuff, because make sure there's no corn in there, okay, as a filler, as far as because they'll sneak corn in to give you more fiber sometimes, and then your body, anyway. But look for the ingredient panel. So you're looking at something, and that's the one thing, if you're going to treat yourself to bread, don't flip out if it's higher calorie, because we're talking about nutrient density.
Right.
You're going to have a higher calorie bread for the nutrients. So don't get the lower calorie. The lower calorie bread's probably going to be higher in sugars and less nutrient dense. That's where we get down to the low carb versus low fat little thing going on, okay? So a lot of times if you go into that.
They'll put whole wheat, and then you look on the ingredients, and whole wheat is not the very
It's not whole
first.
wheat.
Yeah.
No, it's whole wheat. It's what do they call it? I don't even know what
Like
they
processed wheat.
It's
something.
processed wheat flour.
Yeah.
So what they pretty much do is they say made with 100% whole wheat. A lot of times what they do is they take that 100% whole wheat They strip it down, then they add things in, and then it says enriched wheat flour.
That's it.
Okay, so you want to try to stay away from those enriched things because that means they took something that was great, stripped it down with some kind of process, and then they had to put it back in. Okay, so look for, and if Ezekiel isn't your thing, then there are some other sprouted breads out there that are a little more shelf stable that aren't quite as good. There's like, I know there's Mr. Dan's bread or something like that. They have it at Sam's Club. That's a better bread than some of the other breads. So you just got to look at that back panel and weigh out. And should you have it every day? Maybe not. Maybe you should have it once. Yeah.
You were so funny.
The other thing too, honestly, if you're gonna eat bread, and that's my other thing, if you're gonna eat bread, go, and unfortunately we don't have a great bakery around here really, but go to a really fresh, that's why Italians, they're okay. Because they're eating sourdough bread that has cultures in it and it's made from real stuff and it's fine over there. So if you're in Italy, eat bread. Unfortunately here in America, we put so much crap and processed, but if you're at a good bakery, I'd say if you're gonna eat the bread in moderation and get the real stuff that's made from that baker can tell you exactly what's in his bread. So if you're somewhere that you can get that, go for it. Or make your own. Yeah, make your own. Yeah, make your own with some good stuff.
Yeah, if you can get somebody's sourdough starter, sourdough bread to make.
Sourdough is amazing. It has some great bacteria and things in there, and you process sprouted bread, sourdough bread. You process more like a vegetable. Your body takes it in more like a vegetable versus trying to break it down as a grain. So, yeah, as long as it doesn't have a bunch of stuff added into it.
The sourdough that you make, Mirna.
Yeah.
That you make.
The sourdough, I hate to say it, the sourdough at Publix probably
They
is.
like that one.
So, going on that's your thermic effect of food. Protein, we touched on this. Protein satisfies the appetite, so therefore you eat less calories. Research is out there. A diet that's at least 30% in protein or up to 25 to 30% in protein, people have eaten less calories on those diets. There's a reason for that. Okay, it's because you feel fuller, it's more satisfying. Okay, moving on to your satiety index. Has anyone heard of that? The fullness factor. They rate foods, all foods, on a 0 to 5. 5 meaning satisfying, 0 meaning not satisfying. Okay, you want to eat foods from the higher end of that, obviously. The higher end of that: beef, eggs, legumes, beans, all those kinds of things. If your body agrees with it, some people they don't, but you want to eat things higher on that. Things on the lower, obviously your white bread, your sugar, your carbs, your things like that. It doesn't really line up as much with the glycemic index. We talk mostly about carbohydrates and sugars. Well, this is for all foods. It's really, and it goes under that point of, it's really easy to overeat 500 calories of ice cream, right? Try doing it with broccoli.
Yeah.
Seriously, try to eat 500 calories of broccoli and tell me how you feel. No. Broccoli is super high on that scale. Ice cream is super low on that scale. Looking at that, you need to satisfy yourself first and then have your treat secondary. Don't try to satisfy yourself with your treat. It doesn't work out so well that way. That tends to be the problem. And a lot of people kind of have that reversed. Especially if your blood sugar drops and you're hungry and you want something now, what are you going to reach for? Sugar, something that's low on that, right? So making sure that fullness factor comes into play. We talk a little bit about low carb versus low fat. People ask me all the time, should I be on low carb, low fat? Guaranteed, if you lower your carbohydrate intake to where you feel that your body is where it needs to be, and everybody has a different level as to where they need to be, you will lose some weight. One reason being, for every 1 gram of carbohydrate that you store on your body, you store 3 grams of water, okay? So you lose some water weight, okay? That's just natural, that happens. So you'll lose a little bit of that stored water weight that you store with that carbohydrate. Also too, if you lower your carbs, what are you gonna increase, obviously? Something else, right? Either fats or proteins, something that are a little more bulking, filling, and satisfying. So making sure that you're doing that. Lower fat diets. The big thing with low fat, and we talked about this when we looked at yogurts and things like that, the way they make things taste good, and I'm talking about good fats, not bad, crappy, like fried foods fats, but like yogurt and cheeses, if you're eating those, eat the real thing, eat the full fat. Butter, Kerrygold, grass-fed, eat real butter, okay? Because what they do is they strip out all the good fats and put in chemicals and other things to enhance the flavor. Usually most of it's sugar. So if you look at something that's lower fat, if you have two identical pieces of, or loaves of bread or yogurts or whatever, one's low fat, one is regular full fat, you're usually gonna have more protein and less sugar in the full fat one. So don't be afraid of 5 grams of fat, as long as it's a good fat. And as long as you're not overeating. To be honest, like I eat 3 tablespoons of coconut oil or fat a day, like tablespoon. I'm still not getting enough fat in my life. You know, like, so that's the good fats, the real fats. Now if you're eating out, if you're eating at fast food restaurants, if you're eating french fries and pizza and things like that, oh plenty, you're getting plenty of fats, honey. And you don't need any more fats. But if you're eating real foods that you're making from home and cooking and things, you need to add some healthy fats to those foods. Okay, and just note that, you know, like sitting down with a jar of coconut butter, which I did this past weekend, and you should never do that, by the way, is not a good idea. So, because I'm like, oh, this is like ice cream, I'm just going, and I was like, I think I just ate half the jar. So that's not a good idea. Make sure you portion it out, tablespoon, you know, your nuts and your seeds and all that stuff too. Glycemic index foods, and that's what we want to stay away from, that roller coaster effect, 0 to 100. 0 being low on the glycemic index, 100 being your table white sugar. You know, breads and pastas and things are up there really high. That's why for breakfast we don't want to eat something that's high on the glycemic index, because what happens is we start up a fabulous roller coaster at the beginning of the day, then we crash, then we go up, then we crash, then we go up. We want to try to stay in that nice steadiness throughout the day. Your body likes homeostasis. Your body likes to be in balance. So the only way, one of the best ways to set it up for balance is to start off in balance and not spike it and then crash and then spike it and crash. So being careful with that glycemic index foods, and I'm sure you all are familiar with, you've heard of the glycemic index. That's something that's been around for a while, something that's awesome. What I'm going to hand out to you, and then I will stop talking, and I'm sorry if I ran over, as I do always, and if you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them to my best of my ability. But before I hand this out, my challenge to you for this next week is try 5 days of eating nothing from a package, a restaurant, pre-prepared. You must cook at home. You must plan, yes. Just try it. Maybe it's not this week. Maybe you say, okay, Sunday I'm going to take some time. I'm going to prep. I'm going to try it next week for 5 days and see how much you can do. If you can do it, maybe you can do it 7 days. But you don't realize how much you rely on some of those quick, and I'm not talking packages as far as dry beans, brown rice, frozen vegetables, things like that. I'm talking like prepared things that have other ingredients than green peas in them. You know, so you can open up a frozen bag of broccoli. Go ahead and open up a frozen bag of broccoli, but don't open up a Bird's Eye Sensation skillet combo pack of whatever with seasoning and all that kind of stuff in it.
Something
no lean cuisine, no pizza. If you're going to make a pizza, you need to make the pizza yourself, okay? And as far as, you know, obviously cheeses are processed, trying to go from a low processed cheese, so that means you probably shouldn't have much of that. But try not to open up any packages and see how you do, and see how hard or easy it may be for you. But it's amazing because you will decrease the amount of chemicals, the amount of sodium, sugar, hidden ingredients that you don't know, and also increase your nutrients, and just see how different your body might feel. And making sure that we're hitting that protein, fiber, fat, and then making sure that those sugars and ugly carbs are staying down low. So I'm going to give this to you too. This is some take home. Everybody was asking about serving sizes and things. I hope it, you know, I can't say this is your serving for every certain thing. Everything is created differently. Even proteins. So you'll notice on here there's lean proteins, which you can have more of. There is fatty proteins, which you should have less of. Oh, you guys already got them all. I don't know. There you go. On the other side, there's healthy carbs. If you look at non-starchy carbs on there, you can see, look how many servings you can have of all that stuff on that non-starchy carb list. How many servings does it say you can have a day?
Unlimited.
Unlimited. Eat as much of that as you want. Go for it. Okay? So and that's what I was saying, you can't overeat broccoli, right? As far as, well, you could at some point, but you know, that's, when you're looking at carbs and things, go for your carbs there. That's where your carbs should come from. Then, it says limit 3 servings per day on the starches and grains. I honestly can say, I may have 1 of those a day, if that. On some days I don't. I'm getting all my carbs from the non-starchy, most of my carbs from the non-starchy carbs. And fruit, it says limit 3 per day. And know what a serving size of fruit is. 1 date. 1 date. So if you're making something that has dates in it as a snack, how many dates are you putting in there? Just so you know.
Isn't it like a banana is 2 servings too?
Yeah, a banana, you know, is 2 servings. A small banana, less than 6 inches. Most bananas that we have in our supermarkets are not 6 inches.
No.
So, yeah. So mostly a half a banana is a small banana, pretty much. So if you're putting like, for most, unless you get the little baby bananas that you can see. And then on the other side, the healthy fats, the oils and the butter, the healthy fats there, the nuts and seeds. What is a serving of those guys? I'm not a huge fan of peanuts, but they're on there. And again, you need to figure out what works for you. As you can see under healthy fats, look at the extras. Most people would look at a lot of those as carbs, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're considered, because they're considered fats, because they're stuff that we shouldn't, they're extra fats that we shouldn't really have. Okay? So they're not even considered, because this says, what does this say up here?
Healthy.
Healthy carbs, okay? Healthy carbs. And then your protein servings can vary. Like I said, where you see it says very lean protein, 35 calories per ounce, fish, shellfish, low-fat cheeses, you know, you might need, and I eat 6 to 7 ounces of fish. You know, you might be able to eat more of that. You may have to split up into 2 different meals, but you can have more of those lean meats. And then the very high fat meats are the ones that you should obviously taper off on. The biggest thing is get yourself a scale. Even if you don't weigh out everything, if you start and it gives you a good visual, then you know. And that scale will kind of, not a step 1 scale, but a food scale, a food grade scale. Just start weighing out a couple things, and once you kind of get an eye for it, you'll know, and then it's a big realization. A lot of times you'll find out you're not, like Maria said, having enough of the certain things that you need enough
I'm
of.
living proof of it. I lost
And then you tend to overeat.
I'm losing the muscle. I saw the numbers.
Yeah, and then you'll tend to overeat the things that, you know, you're indulging in and shouldn't be having as much of.
I wasn't indulging. I think a lot of it is just I was feeling, I don't know, I was just busy, and then a lot of it, I wasn't eating, like you said, enough calories sometimes. I was watching it.
I've seen people increase their calorie intake and in the right way and lose weight, like, because they've increased their calorie intake not by increasing carbohydrates and breads and things, and filler foods, I call them, but with healthy lean meats and fish and things like that, and good, strong, non-starchy vegetables, and it just starts to,
I'm starting
you
everything
lean
you
out.
said.
You lean out.
Cooking, portioning it out.
Does anybody have any questions for me?
When you say weigh the food, you want it weighed cooked, because when you cook it, you lose
You
a lot
lose
of
about,
weight.
you can lose to a quarter to a half an ounce.
Right, so you want it weighed cooked.
Yeah, I always cooked, sometimes, you know, if you look at some recipes, they'll say pre-cooked, you know, weight or whatever. I always weigh mine cooked and count it as a cooked. If you enter in fit days, sometimes it will ask you if it was raw weight or versus cooked weight.
Okay.
Yeah, and how you prepare your things too.
What do you think of supplements?
Depends. Does your body need supplements? I think we spend a lot of, unfortunately in the first talk I talked about, a tomato 40 years ago versus a tomato today are 2 different tomatoes. We are not getting the nutrients that we used to get because of depletion and all that fantastic stuff. It sits on the supermarket shelf, it doesn't come straight from the farmer, we lose all that. So a lot of people are missing some things in their diet and in their body and things that they might need to supplement for. If you are supplementing, I say you do it with a whole food, natural. I'm a big super greens person, so instead of doing multivitamins and things like that, I do like a super green powder, like, you know, wheatgrass,
that's
spirulina,
awesome.
Valeria, capsules, parsley, those kinds of things to get my nutrients from that form. And I also make sure that it's not a heat processed source, because a lot of times as soon as they add heat, the nutrients go down, so you got to make sure you're getting it from a good. The other thing I do is I do some liquid beads and things, and some people need some liquid. I was vitamin D deficient, imagine that, when I moved to Florida. But some if you haven't had a vitamin D test and things like that, make sure those vitamin D levels are on, because you wouldn't sometimes realize how much vitamin D. You think you're out in the sun a lot, or you think you're getting it, a lot of it's coming from the nutrients from the ground and then reflecting into you. Well, our ground is depleted, especially when we live on concrete, and we're not getting that nutrient-rich vitamin D and soaking it in. So a lot of people, especially females, vitamin D will then, if you're vitamin D deficient, a lot of your hormone systems and your bone density, all those things can be affected. So my big thing is check your vitamin D levels, your vitamin B levels, and liquid forms of those are the best to go underneath your tongue, like a sublingual.
Where do you get those, online, or do you?
You can order them wherever.
And
I'm a big fan of like more grade, and it depends, like everybody has their own different, Premier Labs, Standard Process, Metagenics, Life Extensions. They're all like higher end pharmaceutical grade brands of real stuff versus Centrum at the grocery store. You know, I think we pee out a lot of our vitamins. I don't think our body even breaks them down and takes them in for, you know, for what it's worth.
My grandmother had been prescribed.
I think we have very expensive pee.
Yeah, my grandmother had been prescribed a particular vitamin that could only be absorbed when she consumed it with another vitamin.
Yeah.
And the doctor didn't give her that, so she was just straight paying for really bright, expensive pee.
Yeah. And if you notice that coming out, if you are taking a supplement that's coming out, it could be a little bit of detox, like your body could be detoxing and getting rid of some stuff. But if it's like all the time and continual after you try something new for a while, that vitamin's coming out. Because I was taking a vitamin that had strong B's in it, a pill form, and my pee was neon all the time. I switched over to a liquid, it's not there anymore. So my body was not absorbing what was coming. So that's the stuff you got to be in tune with yourself, you know, and kind of like, you know, we could talk about poop for an hour. I'll talk about poop for an hour because poop is very important. That's the next topic.
She ain't kidding.
The next chapter.
That's the next chapter. That's the next talk. But yeah, I mean, it really is important. And you know, what goes in comes out. And if things are coming out the way they shouldn't, or not coming out, or coming out too much, there's something going on in there that you need to kind of investigate. And I'm not a big pharmaceutical person or anything like that, but you know, there's ways to heal yourself. And you know, I think food is medicine, and there's ways that you can eliminate certain things or add certain things in and totally change your body system. And obviously what we're striving for is optimal health and wellness for lifelong living, not a quick fix or a quick diet or a pill that's going to make you lose 10 pounds. That's not what we're
When that happens, Oprah will let us know.
So, yeah. Yeah. Find that miracle pill. Let me know. Anyway, but I mean, you know, and I went through I personally, at, you know, 39, went through a huge hormonal craziness shift, and I gained 25 pounds for no reason. And I mean, I know my food and exercise and stuff I was on point, and it was all hormonal stuff. And once I got my hormones fixed, it's amazing. I was like, oh my gosh.
I'm emailing you.
So I feel your hormonal pain, ladies, I do. It's amazing, you don't realize what your internal system, and it can be a trigger from, I may have gotten a bacteria from the water or something. I mean, you don't know what, something triggered it. Who knows? But I've always led a very healthy life, and that happened. And so, you know, if you're doing all the right things, and that's what everybody asks me about, different ways, if you're doing all the right things, and if you're eating, you know, lean meats and good healthy fats and the right amount of veggies and doing that stuff, and you're exercising in balance and not over-exercising, and you've got that going on, and stress is where it should be, and you're, you know, kind of meditating and doing some yoga, maybe sprinkling that in, and your body's not responding, there's something, or if you're responding in a different way, there's something internal going on that's beyond, you know, beyond that. So, yes, listen to your body, food journal, and then try to find your answers.
And then if you guys come up with something that might pop up, please, you know, feel free to email us, put it on the Facebook page, let us know. We're here to help.